All right, folks, we're going to open up the floor for questions for Coach Dave. We'll go front row left. Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Coach, any update on the quarterback situation?
Yeah.
I think, first off, that our staff feels confident with both, which is exciting. I think this is two good players getting after it. I think they're making each other better. We've got them more reps than I think we have anybody else in the camps, any of the camps that I've been here. So the two fields helped us. Having 120 guys able to practice was big. I half this weekend after the scrimmage. I just took a straw poll, and it was almost split right down the middle. So what does that mean? Well, I think that it's going to continue to go on this week, and we'll go from there. Right? Is there a chance that both of them can play in the first game? I think the answer is yes, that's a chance. But we're going to keep working. We don't have to make that decision right now. But I can tell you that I am pleased with their progress, and our staff feels strong with both of them playing. Where it goes, we'll keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Third row right, Tony Gertman, Buckeye Hub.
Ryan, when it comes to choosing a quarterback, how much weight does the defensive staff on having to defend somebody with?
A little bit, but I like to get their feedback on what they see every day for sure, and that's why I did that. Same thing on offense. I'd like to know what the O-line coach thinks of the quarterbacks. I'd like to know what the special teams coach sees. It's good to get a consensus of that, but ultimately, it'll be my decision.
As you said, it's split down the middle. One's the defense in favor of one guy versus the offense in favor of the other guy.
No comment.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you emphasized that you're comfortable with both, but obviously the longer this goes on, the more perception is that maybe one guy isn't. I know Dave asked you last week if you believe in the adage of two quarterbacks you run on one. How do you, if you do have to handle this, how do you handle it with both guys?
Well, there's been situations in the past where you have two really good quarterbacks on the roster, and these things have a way of working themselves out. When, but I can't sit here and honestly say I met with the quarterbacks and they agree. There's not one that's that much further ahead, but they're both graded up champions in the scrimmage. They're both playing very well, so that's really good, and we have confidence in them. So we've talked about this before. You don't know until you get into the game what exactly you have, and practice is good. Practice gives us a snapshot of what you're going to see in a game, but once you start getting tackled and you're in the situations and you're live, that's a whole other thing. So we'll just keep trying to figure it out one day at a time. But I've been in situations, not very many, where you don't have a quarterback, and it's like that's not a good feeling. We're going to have a quarterback, and we may have two, and if they deserve to play, they got to play.
Third row left, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
It's kind of on the offensive line. Have any of those position battles been settled? And what was your evaluation how they?
I think that they've improved. I think as we head into the first game, you'll see. I have to make another correction. Josh does like to be called Josh. The guys were calling him Jimmy, so it's back to Josh. Get spun around in circles. But Josh, you'll see Josh at left tackle, and as of right now, going into this week, he'll probably be the starter. And then Donovan is the incumbent at left guard. He's played well, and we'll plan on him being the starter. Our center. Coming out of camp, Carson's a little bit ahead of Vic, but that'll keep working, for the next couple of weeks. They'll keep going at it in practice. We'll keep evaluating, but I would say that, right now, and look at that. Matt Jones is had a really good camp, probably the best football he's been playing. And then at right tackle, we'll probably start with Josh Fryer. But Luke Montgomery is going to play football this year. He's got a lot of talent. He has shown that he can compete as a freshman, and we're very excited about him. So, we have some other battles still going on. Teger's in the mix, Zen's in the mix. Like I said, with Vic, Enoch's, knocking on the door. So in a situation where we felt like we were thin in the O-line, you turn around after a few months and we feel like we have some decent depth. So, nothing set in stone, but as of right now, I'd say those are the leaders in the clubhouse.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, do you believe in the idea if you have two quarterbacks, you have no idea?
No. Oh, I mean, if you had Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, we would say that.
I guess we probably don't necessarily want to have to put two quarterbacks in the game, maybe reaching the point where I guess what are they doing that's going on this fall to actually feel like both of these guys might actually play? What would that look like?
Yeah, great question. I don't know the answer to the second part of that yet. But what are we seeing in practice? Well, I think we're seeing, first off in the run game, I think they have a pretty good handle on what we're doing. In the passing game, I think that they've done a nice job of making good decisions. I think they're getting more and more comfortable being in the pocket and getting the timing of the passing game. That's not something that you just happens. It took Justin Fields a little while. CJ had a great feel for it. Dwayne, that was something that came pretty naturally to him as well. But I think both of the guys are starting to really feel that rush and anticipate what's going on. But, a big thing for us has been situations. I think I've mentioned that before. So we put them in 2-minute situations. Kyle had a really nice drive in the 2-minute drill. So did Devin. One of them was the score. Actually, there was 2 touchdown drives and 2-minute drills in the scrimmage on Saturday. Those are good signs. When you're seeing them play the game, you're seeing them win third down in the red zone, 2-minute, because that's where you make your money as a quarterback. And we're seeing some real improvement in those areas. Now, we got to go put them in the field, and you don't know until you get into a game, but those are the areas that we're seeing the biggest improvement.
Third row right, Rob Oliver, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you're seeing improvement in both guys. That said, are you surprised that one has not stepped forward with one guy's been in the system a little longer than the other? Are you surprised at all?
No. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think they're both doing really well. And the quarterback is a situation that is very unique. But if you think about other positions where there's 2 really good players and then they both roll, it's a lot easier than playing a quarterback because that's a little more rare. But they're both going to be really good players. And how this shakes out, I don't have a crystal ball on that. And ultimately, we have to do what's best for Ohio State. But for me to sit here and say, one guy's this much further ahead than the other guy right now is just not accurate. And that's why I wanted to take a poll of the staff to see if maybe I'm not seeing this the right way. It came back almost 50-50. Okay, so they see it the way I see it.
If you have, if it's even,
Sure.
intangibles,
Yeah.
what's the type of it? Is it how vocal a guy is, how much of a leader he is, how he's regarded
Sure.
by teammates?
Yeah.
Is that like, okay, yeah, more than a point, but it's that.
It's a great question, and I think it's a great thing to hit on. So, yeah, if it's all equal, you want the guy that has it. You want the guy that's the leader, the guy that's leading men into the end zone. That on 3rd and long, or you're backed up, or after a bad play, or we're down by a score, can rally the team, or can find a way to go dive in the end zone on 4th down. You think about some of the quarterbacks we've had, some of the big plays that they've had in big games. Like that's what you need in a quarterback. Somebody that you can rally around. So yeah, if all things are equal, we want the better leader, the better decision maker, and ultimately the best competitor. Because playing a quarterback is just constantly competing. And there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad. You have to be resilient, as we all know, especially being the quarterback at Ohio State. So those are all things that are in consideration.
Right next door, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Brian, how does playing two quarterbacks, if you're gonna get that playing two quarterbacks, how does that change for like game week preparation? When you start to transition to prepare for a game, does that change anything about when you have two guys you're trying to play that game?
Well, I think first is that, the other team has to prepare for two different guys. I think that's one thing. I think, two, we'll continue to, split up the reps the way we have. Make sure that guys are getting what they need. We've been getting a bunch of reps. I still see it the same way. But that's why we work so hard in the preseason and get all those reps in the two fields to make sure that we're getting, all the looks for the guys. Because, when you put in a play, there's a lot of looks that can happen on one play. You have to get, a bunch of them to really master that play. So we've done a bunch of that. But then, we'll kind of divvy them up, the way that's appropriate based on how we're going to play the game.
You said that you're looking for a sizable gap. Is this still reasonable to think that gap could materialize with the time you have left?
1,000%. When I met with the guys yesterday, I told them that. One guy may just kind of take a step forward and then play the whole game. That could happen. So we'll see. But everything's in evaluation right now. But if I sat here right now, I think that both deserve to play.
Right behind him, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Road.
Ryan, I think with Dave's quarterback, you're saying not everything said still on the offensive line. How much of this is just the same mindset that you're keeping from the spring when you were keeping track of everything and making sure everything? Is there a level that you guys don't have an idea of who's going to play, but you don't know the name because you're trying to keep it competitive through the entire offseason?
I hear what you're saying. I think that's just naturally happened, but I think that the competitiveness has made both of them better. But no, this is not something that I think I said earlier would have liked to have had somebody emerge, ideally, but that's okay too. We were thinking about Max Duggan last year, right? He was a backup going into the first game of the season. He had to win the Heisman Trophy. You think about some of the situations. You had Tua and you had Jalen Hurts, so you had different situations. The national championship year with three different quarterbacks playing. So there's precedence behind it. So I think the more these guys play, the more we'll get a feel for in game how they're going to play.
Progression some of these guys who played in their career on offensive lines, like Donovan played that Bison role, and then Josh played that Bison role, kind of set them up to play the next year.
Yes.
Do you envision that as like a role that we feel confident kind of take a hold of it and get experience?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah. I mean, we feel like we have some pretty good tight ends now, but yeah, I mean, those are the types of things we're looking for. To get Luke involved. He's done a nice job, and everything you invest in Luke, you're going to get back down the road.
Back wall, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals, the podcast.
Brian, when you watch a young quarterback roll to his right, step up into the pocket, and then throw a game-winning touchdown with 20 seconds left in his first high school varsity game, do you hear more about that as a dad or a coach?
As a dad, yeah, it was a pretty cool moment.
Now, for this group, have you noticed any sort of discernible difference in the way the team responds to Kyle or Devin, or is that down the middle? I mean, it seems like outside looking in, we see they have very different personalities. Devin is a little bit more outgoing. Kyle's confident, but he's quiet.
Yeah.
Do you see any differentiation in that respect?
I've been looking close, but you're right. They both have different personalities. Kyle has built relationships in the locker room, outside of the Woody here for 3 years, and he's got a good group. I mean, guys really rally around Kyle. They believe in him. They trust in him. They know who he is. Devin has really in the last 6 months really stepped up in that area. He's got a lot of juice. He takes command on the field. You can feel that when he's out there. So both a little bit different styles, but I've been watching close to see how the team rallies around each of them. I don't quite feel it's one way or the other. I think they're out there practicing. I think as we get closer to the game and we start playing in games, I think you maybe feel that a little bit more. But right now, like I said, I think that if you asked our players, they believe in both of those guys.
Internally, like you pick both of these quarterbacks in the recruiting process. How much of that in your mind is going back and forth between which, is there a differentiation in your mind when you were recruiting them? Like what made them special and where they are now? Are they both where you expected?
The thing we say in recruiting is that the best we can do is we're going to put you in a room with other 4- and 5-star guys and let you compete it out and find out where you go. And then There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, but in the end, you just got to keep coming back and being resilient, because that's a huge part of playing quarterback. Working through adversity, working through tough times. And the one thing for Kyle is, he's been here now for 3 years, he's seen it, and probably could have gone somewhere and played as a freshman or a sophomore, but he stuck in there and he's been loyal. And so I give him a lot of credit for that. When you look at Devin, who came here when that was a pretty packed quarterback room when he showed up, and he didn't shy away from that competition. So both unique stories, but that have gotten to this point right now, and then Tristan and Lincoln have their own story. So that's one of the things that makes that room great, is that you're going to be in there with really good players.
Fifth row right, Cameron Keith Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, as you guys prepare, at what point do you just say, okay, they're both going to play, we have to figure out who's going to get the first drive, how you're going to deal with the rest?
Yeah, probably, we'll work on them a little bit this week. We'll still be mostly, good on good, but we'll start to mix in some stuff. And then as we get into game week, that's where you got to really start to have a plan on how you want to do it.
So is it for you, play this week out, and if they're still even, they're both playing?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Right, you understand the psychology of this position, having played it, like, I'd imagine 99%, if not 100% of quarterbacks would rather be in a situation where they know they're the guy, and not, rotate every other snap, whatever you're planning to come up with. Sure. How is your viewpoint on that evolve as you go through this camp? Was there ever a point earlier in your career, I don't think you had the quarterback system, but now that you have two, have you changed your mind at all on the feasibility?
Not that I've changed my mind. I think this year is unique. Every year is different. Every dynamic is different. And I hear what you're saying on that, but that's where we are. And those guys are going to continue to compete. We'll kind of see who ultimately coaches. I'd be surprised if it continues throughout the season. Once you get into the games, but it's been close. It's been back and forth. And I think, to your point, you would like to have somebody who's the quarterback to play the whole game. But, for me to say, hey, this guy should just play the whole game and the other one shouldn't, that's not the right thing to do right now, because they both deserve to play at this point.
How much does their schedule factor into the decision? We've seen programs in the past do something like this where they maybe weren't opening with road conference, whatever the public is thinking in the end, it's still a Big Ten road game, right? How does that factor into it?
Well, if it factors in, we got to go play great football. Like we can't all of a sudden, just do something because it seems like, bottom line is you have to do what's best for Ohio State to win the game, period. That's it, because we have to be 1-0 on Saturday night. It's the first goal of the season, is to beat Indiana on the road. So we're going to do everything we can to win that game and make the best decision to put the guys in the right spots to be successful, and then we'll kind of build from there.
All right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Coach, seemed like some of your guys reached out in support of Sammy Sasso. Can you talk about just what that means to have that support?
Yeah, well, it's a family here at Ohio State. There's a lot of athletes here, but to see something like that happen was shocking. And our prayers and thoughts are with him and his family, and certainly Coach Ryan and the whole team. Just a tough day, and so he's got a lot of people around supporting him, but it's just awful that he had to go through something like this, and just it makes you think about how quickly things can end, and tough day, but certainly everybody here respect.
Back to football, do you have equally tough decisions in the NFL with QBs? They're taking you back to 13, 14.
Not really. Usually in those type of situations, the one year I had in Philly, they signed Sam Bradford to a pretty significant contract, and so he was the starter. I mean, when they're paying him that much money, he's going to be the starter. That's just how it goes in the NFL. The year in San Francisco was a little different. Kaepernick was coming off of the year before and a little bit injured, and then Blaine Gabbert was there. So that was kind of back and forth, and Blaine started the first, 6 or 7 games, and then Cap took over for the remaining half of the season. So, went through it a little bit there, but NFL is a little bit different just because of the contracts and how they're signed and drafted.
Is the criteria different as well? You're choosing?
No, I think they're pretty similar, actually.
Third row, middle, Dan Hope, left Warriors. Brian, you guys had at least six captains in all of your previous seasons. You had only 3 this year. What was the rationale behind that?
Yeah, when we vote, we have a leadership committee vote in February for our leadership committee, and then we re-vote after the spring season to find out who's on the leadership committee. And then by the time we get to the captains, we've already kind of had 2 votes, and guys have been put into leadership roles. And so I felt like we had a pretty sizable leadership group. But, when we vote, we try to look at, where is there a gap? Tommy and Cade were significantly higher than everybody else, and then the third one was Xavier. And not because he was block vote, because it was a 6-year, because he was the third leading vote getter, we felt like it was appropriate to name him as the third captain. And then from there was a sizable gap. Now, part of that was because a lot of other guys got over 10 to 15 votes. That was spread pretty good, and there was 3-year, third-year guys in there, and when you have 5th-year guys and 6th-year guys who have been around, it's a little bit of a different feel, just a little bit more of a maturity there. But that doesn't mean the other guys aren't going to be leaders. And we talked about that out in the field. But we just try to look at the numbers and figure out, where the gap is and what's appropriate. And we felt like these 3 were the best. And I think our team did a good job of voting because, we had CJ Barnett and James Laurinaitis speak to the team about what it means to be a captain. And, they hit the nail right on the head. So proud of those guys. Think it's the right group.
Do you think there is a benefit to having a smaller group of captains?
I think every team is different. It's kind of like, you think about some teams where if you don't have, 1, 2, or 3 guys that you feel really strongly about, then sometimes you spread it, 4 or 5. And that usually is indicated by the way it's voted on. This year, there was a pretty strong gap in there, and that was clear. And it worked out, 1 on offense, 1 on defense, and then Xavier is going to be a huge contributor on offense, but he's also played over 700 snaps on special teams. You really kind of have an offense, a defense, and a special teams. And so that just worked out.
Second row, middle, Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
I think there's a potential wisdom of you have 2 guys who are back, then maybe the tie should go to the young guy because that guy gets all the first team reps. Maybe that development with kicking maybe it's full part of the way. Where do you see a flaw in that project? Do you see
No, I mean, I think, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think if all things are equal, you probably go with the guy who's been in the program longer for, at least for the first half. And you go from there, but like you said, we'll have to just keep evaluating it. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, I guess.
you said that when you put that straw poll that it was almost even. So why didn't that sway it one way or the other? That would imply that somebody was still came out ahead there, did it not jive with how you were seeing it?
I just wanted to get an idea what they were thinking.
Duke Bright, Joe Louis, WCMH.
Xavier Johnson wearing the Blanco this year. What stands out to you about his journey the last 6 years?
When you think about somebody who came in as a walk-on, earned a scholarship, had that touchdown catch in the Notre Dame game, then the next play runs down on kickoff and gets a tackle inside the 20-yard line. The touchdown against Georgia. He played running back for us, had that long run against Indiana. He played over 700 snaps at special teams here. We say that when you play on special teams, you become a better football player. You're learning how to play every day. Every time Coach Fleming is in here in a special teams meeting, the guys in there are learning about football, how to play in a football position, how to strike at the point of attack, how to avoid contact, how to make contact. Xavier Johnson is the ultimate example of that. We had Nate Ebner come by practice today. He was just watching practice. And this guy who played in the NFL for 10 years on special teams and made a career out of it. He didn't even play high school football. And, so it's just a great example, Nate and now Xavier, of guys who are self-made. You know, they have a certain level of talent, but they acquire discipline and so much skill in their life that they've had success. To get Xavier to come back this year, he's going to be a big part of our team.
All right, Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast, 97.1.
Ryan, with the training camp portion over, is there something that played out that surprised you that you weren't expecting when you guys started camp?
We'll see where the O-line's at, but I think some of the additions we've had and some of the work that's been done, I think that we made some really nice progress there. I think we have more depth at defensive end than I expected to have. And that's probably the biggest takeaways overall. I will say that Carnell Tate continues to impress. To go through what he's been through this month and then just to continue to show up every day and play the way he's playing. You're talking about someone who not only has talent, but has maturity at a high level. I've been very impressed with Carnell. I think the other thing that's noticeable when you come out to practice is you see the defense getting their hands on more balls overall. I think they're challenging more aggressive, a little bit older, and a lot more length. If you watch our defense go out there, you look at that defense, it's got a lot more length and size than maybe we've had in the past.
The discussion with Barnett, how do you fit him in? You have that top three in that. What are some of the ideas there?
I mean, those are all things we'll have to figure out as we get closer to the game, but there's a lot of snaps. We'll rotate guys the long season, so those things find a way to work themselves out at that position. But he just keeps stacking days and keeps impressing.
Fourth row right, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Right, you mentioned last week that the kicking battle was back and forth and you wanted to get set up again last week. Where's it at with Jaden?
I have not talked to Parker about a final decision on that yet. I plan on doing that this afternoon, so I can probably have an update for you next time I get with you.
What more do you need to see from people on?
Probably nothing more. I think we probably have an idea where we're going into the first game. But I want to talk to Parker before I mention anything to you guys.
Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Brian, Josh, what has he shown you over the last week? Kind of look at it,
Yeah, ability off the chart, talent off the chart, just jumps out. Movement, strength. Just needs more and more reps. Needs to keep playing, but has a chance to be as good as he wants to be. A little bit, but I walked by him the other day and I said, "This is just like San Diego State," and he said, "Yes, sir." And then I walked away and he says, "Coach, this is nothing like San Diego State."
Okay. So I mean, he's gonna be in a different environment, but he has played and they play very, very good football there, and they play against good teams, so that's a good sign. And he's competing every day. Every day he's going against, JT and Jack and Kenyatta, and it just keeps coming at him. And so he's responding well to that. So that's good. Definitely not a finished product at all, but he does know what it feels like. He knows what it's like to play a season and all that. So that is helpful for sure. But it's going to be a different challenge for him.
Right next door, Tim May, Letterman Row, Tim May podcast.
Thanks, Jared. I'm not going to ask you more quarterback questions because you've answered those about 10 times over the last 3 weeks. I do want to ask this. Rodgers or Brady, which one would you have started?
You brought it up. I would have played them both.
When you look at what y'all did in the transfer portal this year with Tywone Malone bringing what he's brought, looks like to the middle of that defense, at least substantial depth. Josh, don't call me Jimmy Simmons at left tackle. Davis and Igbinosun. Did y'all hit home runs there? How would you describe what y'all score? Tristan Gebbia, a guy who's played and is offering obviously leadership in that quarterback room, even though he's not the starter.
Yeah. I don't want to say that yet because we haven't played a game. But I'll tell you, I've been very excited about what you just said, all those guys. Excellent. I think we did a nice job not only evaluating, but also identifying the right fit. And the guys that you mentioned, the roles that they've taken on, I'm excited to see all of them. But you're right. I don't want to say because we haven't played anything. How am I going to say anything? But it's been very encouraging.
But just jump out to you that all those guys have played.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They're not bringing along neophytes there.
That's right. Yeah, and like Davidson, he played at Ole Miss. He's playing in the SEC. I mean, he's playing against real teams every week. Taiwan has played in those games. Now he's really diving into football now. He's all in on football. So I think his best football is ahead of him. You're right. These are not guys that are coming out of high school. They've actually played in games.
You talked about Cardinal Tate a minute ago, and Noah Rogers lost his black stripe and stuff. How pleased are you with that group? I mean, that young group of receivers. That's an obvious kind of an obtuse question, but
yeah, excited about them. I think that they hit the third week of preseason camp a little bit as a group, but Brandon Innes, I believe he got his black stripe off today. That was exciting to see him because he had a nice scrimmage. He's a football player. I think we all wish he was here in January, but that's okay. He's doing a great job. He had to come in the summer and kind of figure all that out, and so he will. And he's got a pretty crowded room in there that he's got to work through. But he's trying to get in on special teams as a returner and those type of things. So Bryson and Noah are working hard, and obviously Carnell's there. So very encouraged with them. I like their work ethic. I like where they're at. They're still freshmen. They're still working through all that, but it's been mostly positive.
What an era though, because you're talking about receivers coming in who are almost complete. I'm not saying they don't have anything to work on, but it's interesting. The top level receivers are coming out in college football now, isn't it? To you, Ryan?
Well, they're more. They play more 7-on-7, so they know how to run routes more. They know how to deal with man-to-man. They know how to recognize zone. They do all that stuff. The areas where they don't always get as much opportunity is just the blocking and taking care of the football, playing on contact, and those type of things. It's still a very physical game, and that's where when you're in camp day after day playing with pads and getting tackled and getting hit and having the block. I mean, those are all the things that they're working through. But to your point, when it comes to the passing game, these guys are much further along than maybe in years past.
Getting short on time, folks. We have time for a couple more. Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Hey, Coach. Secondary last year gave up some plays there the last couple of games. You have more depth there this year. Just what's your overall thought about that group and how they've performed through the first 2 or 3 weeks, and who are maybe one or two guys that have been consistent throughout that period, maybe most consistent throughout that period?
At corner, Davison, Denzel, and Jordan, those three have been consistent. Lorenzo's learning the position, but he's very competitive and getting after it. Jermaine Matthews has flashed. The young guys, the Calvin and I think I'm missing Jair, Ryan Turner. I mean, those guys have all played, but I think when you look at probably Denzel, Jordan, and Davidson, those guys have probably been the most consistent this camp. It's safety. Lathan and Proc Malik has done a really good job stepping up. You're going to see him play a lot this season. He's got a bright future ahead of him. Jihad's going to be in the mix for sure and play. And then obviously Cam and Sonny, have done well. Cam's missed some time recently, but we'll get him back in there soon. And get him back out there today, I think. So, no, I mean, they're like you said, we have more depth than we've had in the past and more length.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I will ask you a quarterback question. Sorry, Tim. How much do you weigh floor versus ceiling? That that if you start this player, you'll get this at the start, but maybe another guy's got more potential. Maybe it's the same guy's got both. Right. And especially considering not to slight the first three opponents, yep. but you can maybe ease into it before you play Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think that plays into it. Yeah, I think you want to figure out who has the highest ceiling, who can develop more. I think that does play into consideration, but at the same time, you're not going to do that at the risk of losing games.
How are you handling it, and how are the quarterbacks handling this? I'm sure they would love to have had a decision, and I'm sure you would like to have had this.
Yeah, it's college football, every year has a different story. Every year has a different challenge, and you work through. I know in my heart this thing is going to work itself out. But I'm proud of the way the guys are competing. I am. I mean, if I felt any other way, I'd say it. But now they're going to have to go, keep pushing through and competing. And if it goes into the season, it goes into the season.
How much better do you feel about your team overall now versus at the start of camp?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We got to go play football, but I think I mentioned to you before that I feel like this is a more veteran team. How do you know? You're just more consistent every day. You know what to expect. Tommy Eichenberg, just how many times has he seen counter now in his career? He can call it out before it even happens. He looks at the guard and he starts yelling counter. Like that just it has a different feel to it. So excited to get on the field. Looking forward to kicking off this first game and go see what we got. And then the journey begins. It's a long road all the way to the end of the season. But our first goal this year is to beat Indiana. Second one is to win all the other games leading up to the rivalry game. And then we're going to go from there.
And final questions, Doug Lamreese, the podcast, Kings of Columbus.
Ryan, sometimes you have a quarterback competition, sometimes you don't. Based on the level of play that you've seen from the quarterbacks, if one of them wasn't here and you were getting ready and the other one was going to be this one, how would you feel about that quarterback if he wasn't in a competition?
No, I feel good. Feel good that we have a good quarterback that we're going to develop and continue to build on. And I mean that's what I'm saying. I think that we have confidence that these guys can go in and play at a high level. Now, how high? The expectations are pretty high around here, and I think that's where we're not sure, but yeah, I would say that we feel good with both of them right now.
So if you're in a place where, based on their level of play, you feel good about both of them, then it really is sort of the process of how you make this decision, how they play. What do you have to do so that process doesn't go wrong? You know what I mean?
Well,
like, hey, we have two good quarterbacks, but somebody got in his own head because he was in a competition. Like, what is there any, not fear, but is that something to think about?
I guess, but ultimately it's going to come down to how well they play. I mean, you guys are going to see them play here. Maybe two, maybe one. We'll see. But in the first game, and we'll start to evaluate that, and we'll see. Because ultimately, it's going to come down to how well they play, and then it's going to kind of go from there. And I mean, will I be surprised if we get into week 6 and both of them are playing exactly? I guess they could be, but usually when you start getting into games, you start to see somebody pull away. And I thought maybe that would have happened by now, but it's neck and neck. There was a point twice in camp where I thought one was pulling away from the other, and then 2 practices went by and the other one really played well and the other one kind of leveled off. And I would let them know too, right then and there. I'd say, you were pulling away, and he just kind of took over a little bit, And so one thing's for sure is they can't take a down off. They can't take a play off, and they're pushing each other, and that's good. I kind of use that racehorse analogy. I mean, they're running down the stretch against each other, and one pulls away, the other one goes. I mean, they're going hard. So, the bottom line is, that finish line isn't, right now. I mean, we're going to keep going and keep running and give them the opportunity, and we'll just keep evaluating it.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Yep.
Thanks, Ralph.
Yep.
Hey, Mike. Coach is here. I got Coach.
Which one's yours? You sure?
Thanks, Coach. Excuse me. All right, folks, we're not going to go quite that long with Coach Knowles today, but we'll go about 15 minutes. We'll open up the floor for Coach Knowles to the first person who raises their hand. Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com, second row.
We were talking to defensive backs over the course of the spring. We were talking to, I guess the one that jumps to my head is Jordan Hancock talking about how he's playing corner and nickel. So was there a point at which you decided that you maybe had to be more multiple in the back than you were last year? Are we reading that wrong? Do you not expect to be more multiple back there?
No, I just think it's trying to put the best guys in the best positions, trying to get your best 11 on the field, being prepared for matchups, right, as they come now or in the future. kind of a long-term thing. So we get the right people, and when we need them on a slot. It's good to get Jordan prepared for that so that he understands it.
I'm sorry, second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Jim, I'm assuming you've gotten into some of the Jack stuff by this point with CJ Hicks. How has that looked to you? Has it matched up with what you thought that might look like? Did you consider possibilities?
Yeah, I like CJ there. Mitchell Melton too. Both those guys have been active and understanding of the system and making a lot of plays. There's some freedom that goes with it, and I think there's a future for both of them.
Do you have an idea at this point, as you're closer to the game, what percentage of the time you'd like to use that with your defense?
That's private information. Yeah, gotta keep that. There's spies listening.
Third row right, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Jim, have Sonny and Jihad kind of solidified themselves as starting safeties at this point, or are you still working your way through that?
Sonny has. Sonny is, he's definitely a guy we're going to have on the field as much as we can. He can match up, to both 11 and 12 personnel when people bring in 2 tight ends. He gives us a lot more versatility. Jihad's doing well. Been banged up a little bit. In that high safety area, you're looking at Lathan for sure. He's had a great camp, great spring. And then you're looking at Proctor and Malik and Jihad. Really those 3 are fighting it out for that other position. And between the 3 of them, they'll play there and also back up Lathan. Yeah. But there's very much a competition still going on for that other spot.
Third row right, Tony Gergman, Buckeye Huddle.
Malik Hartford has a possibility, true freshman, free safety. What kind of concerns has, I guess, maybe he alleviated over camp, and what kind of concerns would that give you?
It's day to day, but you feel Malik's presence on the field. And I think when you're talking about DBs, right, we all want to feel their presence on the field, including you, the fans. You want to feel it. And Malik is a guy who is going to show up around the ball. He's very smart. Yeah, of course you worry about, freshman mistakes, and back there a mistake is costly. So, it's our job to judge his progress. He's on that path. He's on that path, and we just got to keep fine tuning it.
Third row left, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
Yes. How have you seen the defensive line progress throughout camp? What's been the level of pressure, and how does it maybe tie in with some of the, you've been talking about the secondary getting more hands on balls. How have they been playing complementary coverage versus rush?
Right. I say coverage and rush, and the whole defense that's working together. It's hand in hand. And our rushmen have had a great camp. We have 4 ends there that I think are as good as anyone in the country. I think the depth there is fantastic. I think you have elite players. You have potentially elite players. JT, Jack, Kenyatta, Caden Curry is just a guy who's going to show up and make plays. So you got 4 really good ends, and I feel like the rush has been strong. We've certainly, we've felt it. We felt it and seen it during camp.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Obviously, the big issue at the end of last year was giving up big plays. What progress have you seen in that area?
And I've seen progress. I've seen a conscientious effort on all of our parts to make sure that we fix whatever mistakes happen, learn from those and get better. And I've seen myself develop in terms of coverages and defenses that keep the ball more in front and inside, and a development of myself. I mean, that's how I think a coach grows. You know, you can't be stuck in your ways, and you know, so I've done that, looked at everything. So we've added to the package or called some things more that put us in a better position to prevent those.
You said what you said about the defensive ends. I know you got a linebacker. You feel good about the secondary. Defensive tackles are good. What questions do you have about this defense, or just a matter of doing what you think they can do?
Yeah, I want to make sure that we solidify that other safety position, like between Proctor and Malik and Jihad. I think that battle is still out there, so I want to make sure we solidify that. Our corner development has been great. Davison has been one of the best cover guys in camp. I mean, I think our receivers would say that. So between him and Jordan and Denzel, I see a ton of growth there. You're always concerned about depth inside, you know, at defensive tackle, because those guys just get beat up. It's a hard position. But Mike Hall can be elite. Stay healthy. He's talented. Plays hard. Ty. So Tyleek's been a little banged up. You know, so you see waves during camp at that defensive tackle position where it can become thin quickly. One of the young guys I think has had a really good camp is Hero Canoe. I mean, he has showed up, so I think he's going to add to our depth there.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
Coach, I'm curious. Ryan says the QBs are equal. So in practice, you guys scheme against both of them. Is there anything different between them? Or like when Kyle's in, what do you change versus when Devin's in with defense?
No comment. Next. Yeah, I know it's a good question, but I can't participate. So you know. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
What growth have you seen from Jack Sawyer putting his hand back in the ground?
Yeah, last 2 days actually, Jack just put him in a Silver Bowl of the day last 2 days. He's really I felt like, you know, he was at a high level during camp, and then last 2 days he just kind of vaulted himself into being a dominant guy. So a lot of growth. I think that's been a good move to just have him concentrate on that.
Fourth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Jim, at the beginning of the offseason, it was JT and Jack as the two mainstays of defensive end. When did it become JT, Jack, and Kenyatta?
Spring, really. I mean, Kenyatta showed up. He's got a great first step. I mean, he jumps off the video. You know, it's just you can't deny that he's out there making plays and making life difficult for the offense.
A guy that athletic to pair, whether you want to pair him with Jack or with JT or just get him in space. You have to reconsider whether you guys want to use the Jack position as much just because you have that athleticism from a true defensive end, and how does that go into whether you actually want it?
Sure, it goes into it. Absolutely. You want to get the best players on the field in the best situations. It's never about what I know or it's about what's best. And I think that's a real thing. We got some talent there. So we got to feature those guys. And a lot of times the best way to feature them is just let them put their hand down and go,
Back wall, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals, the podcast.
Jim, you mentioned Jack and the leap he's made being able to be in one spot. When you talk about a guy like Mitchell Melton who has struggled with injury, but then moving back and forth position-wise, how important has it been for him this fall? And have you found yourself thinking maybe he should stay hand in the ground at defensive end as well, because he's obviously moving up that rank, and then you have a guy like CJ Hicks who maybe is more built for the bullet or the Jack as you have always sort of had?
Yep, I think that's a real consideration. Mitch has grown a lot at just the defensive end position. So taking him into that role, you have to have consideration for what does that take away from him as a Jack. But he's really smart. Mitch is very smart, very level-headed. But I've seen a lot of progress out of him at defensive end. So that's how you have to kind of look at it player by player and day by day, and how much are they handling it without diminishing other things that they do at other positions. And but it's certainly a consideration.
Not to be too narrowed in on a specific player, but where does Caden Curry fit into this defense as you?
Yeah, Caden's going to play a lot. I mean, you could, all along that front, he's going to fit, I think, in different places because, maybe not on rundowns, but you got to be ready for this guy to do anything on pass downs because he plays hard and he's hard to handle for the offense. So, we can come up with any different ways to get him on the field, but you'll see him at a regular defensive end on a regular basis. You may see him at other places in pass rush situations.
Right, Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast, 97.1.
Jim, it seems
that's a lot.
I know it's. You got to keep them all straight. Jerry does a great job. When it seems like Cody Simon has had another, solid camp for you all. It's, I guess, I don't know if this qualifies as a secret for the Spies, but it feels hard for us to envision where exactly he fits for you if with Tommy and Steele being out there so much. What do you kind of envision for Cody?
Yeah, Cody's got to play a lot at linebacker, right? Because we need to. Same with CJ, right? I need to do a better job of projecting towards the end of the season, and that includes, like we talked about, with my defenses and what I plan for and those matchup games, and how do we keep guys healthier over the long run. And I think that's where Cody comes in. He's got to be in there a lot early on in the season as a regular linebacker, but you're still going to see him at a Sam position. Again, we have Sonny, so Sonny can be really kind of interchangeable against all personnels. But when teams get really big, Cody's a guy you're still going to see there.
It feels like this question, and then Burmaster, a lot of different guys have versatility to move around. Do you feel like there's more depth and ability for you to create than at this time a year ago?
Absolutely, but I have to be careful with that, right? Because you want guys to know exactly what they're doing so that they can play fast, so I have to always judge the creativity versus the fundamentals necessary for playing a position and knowing exactly what to do to be able to do it quickly. So, but there is enough there to kind of play around with in different spots, and I have to use my judgment of what's best for the defense in that.
Got time for a couple more. Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, just to clarify with Sonny, he would start in safety spot would be nickel for him.
Yeah, nickel Sam, strike. Maybe I'll call him a strike. Because I don't know, nickel Sam. Single, and strike. I come up with strike. Maybe strike's a cool name, but yeah. So he's definitely a combination of those two.
What was it about that spot that was ultimately that suited him the best after getting to watch? I mean, you talked about him being kind of versatile and can do it all, but what was it about that spot in the secondary that was sort of where you liked him?
Yeah, well, that has been mainly a third corner DB type of spot for me. Tanner came here from Oklahoma State, and then you get into a lot of situations where there's still a tight end in that matchup there, and not a slot, and then you kind of just trying to hold up with a nickel. And I saw in Sonny is that he has the ability to play high safety, to play man coverage, but he also has the length and the toughness to play up close to the ball. So you play him as in that nickel strike position, and now you have a lot more flexibility in terms of, okay, is he man on the slot? Is he zone? Is he inside? Is he outside? Is he blitzing off the edge? He just creates a whole nother dynamic. I had a guy a lot like him. You guys might remember him, Jeremy Cash, who was at Ohio State actually, and then came to Duke and was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and Jim Thorpe and all kinds of things. Because he was considered a DB, but he was really almost like an outside linebacker. Sonny's that's kind of the body type there.
And we'll have today's Elam ending ends with Tim May, Rivals,
I get it.
Tim May podcast.
If you had voted for Tommy Eichenberg as captain, if you were a player instead of a coach or something, why would you have voted Tommy Eichenberg captain for this team for a second straight year?
Because I want a guy who, no matter what happens, no matter what the situation, when you get into that fog, that happens out there when maybe you hit a little adversity. I want a guy who's never going to flinch. I want someone who's going to lead, not so much through his words, but just by being a stalwart for the program. He's going to be there. He's going to be on the front line. He's going to be, diagnosing things. He's going to be figuring it out if something goes wrong. He's never going to point fingers. He's always going to look at his own deficiencies or plays that didn't go right. He's always going to be hard on himself. He's just that dude.
And the other quickie, I asked Ryan about this a minute ago, but do you feel like y'all, I don't know, the season hasn't started yet, but you now have got a preseason camp under your belts. Do you feel like y'all hit a home run in the transfer portal based on the guys you've got, Jihad, Taiwan Malone, and Igbinosun? How would you describe what they have brought, I guess, to the program?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we could have done better. So yeah, I would definitely consider it a success. Number one, because all three guys, they're team guys, a good culture. None of them came in saying me, and what am I going to get? And you can throw them in right away at Ohio State. Again, a great offensive system, and they compete. I mean, that's, you can't do that with everyone, and they can get in there and they can compete. So yeah, it's been good.
Coach, thank you very much. All right, Coach, we'll keep the you guys can